Hello, Gremlins. If I sound a bit loud today, you're going to have to excuse me. Recent events in the gaming industry have got me a little fired up. I'm going to go right into it because there are some things that are not being addressed that I feel somebody has to address. And it's a big elephant in the room, and I am tired of people ignoring it. What am I talking about? The recent incident with Helldivers 2 and the whole Sony PlayStation Network requirement fiasco. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to establish a few things before anybody starts yelling at me for it. We finally now know all the facts as to this. How, when was it known? What did Arrowhead know? What Arrowhead could or could not do about it? Sony's philosophy behind the reasoning, and that's all been established. So if you want all the details on what went down, go look it up. There you can even find a place where they'll give you a timeline of everything. This all happened over a weekend too, so it's a very short amount of time. What am I going to address here? The elephant in the room I was talking about? The player knee-jerk reaction about it. There was a good number of people that, I'm sorry, to be perfectly honest, extremely overreacted over this. I'm not talking about those players in the 170 countries where they have no way of creating the PlayStation Network account. They have every reason to be furious about this, ask for refunds and review bomb this. That's fine. What I'm going to talk about are those who were perfectly capable of creating an account, and the whole thing that they're yelling about. First of all, a lot of them are yelling about the fact that the whole security requirement reasoning that Sony gave out is bullshit. No, it's not. It is a game that runs on the PlayStation Network. It does not run on a separate network. It's Sony's network. It's Sony's IP. It's Sony's game that Arrowhead created under their umbrella. Yes, they have every right to have a security requirement to get into their network. Period. End of story. Did they do it the right way? Did they manage it properly? Of course not. 99% of the blame for this lands on Sony. Yes, it was there from the beginning. They did not do a very good job of communicating to people that this was not going to be optional going down the line. The Arrowhead CEO even chimed in on this, admitting that maybe he should have been a little bit more vocal and explicit about the fact that the optional thing was not a permanent thing. He should have clarified better. I jumped in. I don't mind. I have a PlayStation account that's already linked to my Steam. I don't have that issue, so... But not even I noticed this. But yes, it was there from day one. Did Arrowhead know about this about half a year before they released? Yes. But again, the details were there from day one. Nobody bothered reading it. Myself included. Then again, it doesn't matter one way or another if I did or not. But the whole thing started because Sony and Arrowhead, to a small degree, were not very good about communicating these details, these very important details that weigh heavily on whether somebody buys this game or not. So for those in the 170 plus countries that felt robbed and are now banned from the game because trying to use things like VPN to comply with this Sony rule, yeah, they have every reason to be angry and review bomb the game and refund it or whatever. Even if that's not what happened to you. As a player, if you're upset about the whole thing, you have every right to ask for a refund. Nobody's going to argue that at all. So why am I yelling about the knee-jerk reaction? Well, I'm obviously yelling about those who went on the usual troll, toxic, vitriol, latent, rant, attack mode from day one and going after Arrowhead as a dev for the whole thing. Not just getting refunds, not just review bombing, but directly harassing and attacking the devs themselves for something that is very clear now. It was clear from day one, but now there's no doubt about it. They had zero control over it. Again, this is a game that runs on the PlayStation Network that is owned and run by Sony. Sony is to blame for this. Leadership is to blame for this. The devs are just the people putting the game together and trying to make it the best as possible for you. How bad has it been? These same toxic assholes, because there's no better word for it, sorry to say, have gone so far as to go and start review bombing Helldivers 1 that has absolutely nothing to do with any of this. So that's just salt on the wound level kind of attacks. Why am I so worked up about this? Well, people think that this is just a way for them to get Sony to correct it and them get their money's worth or getting their money back or what have you, and it's perfectly justified. Yeah, sure. But because you're attacking Arrowhead, that is not to blame for this, and not Sony, which, yes, granted, people eventually got the message and a good number of them focused, and now people are, fixing their negative reviews and what have you. That's great. I've never seen that happen. Most of the time, this doesn't happen. And so the studio gets attacked, the game gets review bombed, it gets thrown into the dirt, people get refunds, they move away, and the publishing company, which is to blame for the whole thing, they look at the studio and they say, well, shit, you hit rock bottom. Can you recover from this? I think we're losing too much money. Maybe we should fire all of you and close the studio. That's usually what happens when you take this that far. And people are not thinking about this. All these players that knee-jerked and started getting refunds from day one and started review bombing from day one never asked any questions. They didn't try to find out why that was being enforced the way it was, who put out the mandate, the reasoning why. They didn't really listen to the reasoning. Anything that they got told, they were like, that's bullshit, and kept yelling. They didn't get their facts straight. Then they didn't find out if Arrowhead had any control over this.
Welcome!
None of that. They just went after the devs. People had no control over this. Again, I keep repeating this. They had no control over this. The devs even didn't like the idea from the moment they found out half a year before they released the game. No control. And they just kept attacking and attacking and attacking and attacking. These things have real life consequences. And it doesn't help anybody, not you as a player or them as a studio, to make anything better by just going after them and threatening their literal livelihood and their careers. No. Everybody automatically forgot all the goodwill, all the dedication that Arrowhead has had with their community, all the engagement. The CEO himself talks to the community constantly, every day. How many CEOs from any studio do you see doing this? Even the better ones about it. You don't hardly ever see that in this industry. These are very well dedicated and passionate people who actually care not only about their game, but about the community and how they feel about it. They're constantly revising it and improving it to make sure their players get as best an experience as possible. Arrowhead even goes so far as to get ideas directly from the players and say, hey, what do you want to see? And the players say, oh, this would be cool. And so, okay, let me see if we can put that in. They don't make any promises, but they sure as hell damn try. And from day one, they all forgot this, threw it to the wind, and stabbed them in the back. Yeah, it infuriates me as a player and as a dev, because I am both. I see this from both sides of this. I'll be the first one to tell you Sony fucked up royally. And Arrowhead dropped the ball because they could have saved it if they were a little more clear in the beginning. And again, the CEO, Pilesdet, has come out publicly and admitting as much. Even then, this is all on Sony, not Arrowhead. And review bombing Helldivers 1? Now you're actually attacking their livelihood. Now you just want to destroy them. That's just vicious and malicious. And it needs to stop. And I see nobody really addressing this. The best I've seen journalists address this is one or two sentences saying something to the effect of, oh, there's a group of toxic troll players that are going after the devs for something they're not to blame, and that's just not right. And that is it. Everything else is about Sony and Helldivers and the PSN issue. Nobody has the balls to go after these toxic players. Not to feed the trolls, but to inform the rest of the community about why they are wrong, why they are making things worse and not better, and they're not helping anybody. This is not exclusive to Helldivers 2 or Sony. We've seen it in so many games. Halo, Destiny, with Bungie specifically, the studio being attacked for it. Blizzard, all of them. There's so many games, I don't even have the energy to go through the whole list right now. But every time there's a problem with a game, everybody goes after the devs first. Let me make this absolutely clear. The devs are the ones making the game. They're usually under mandate. especially those under big publishing houses like EA, Activision, Sony, Microsoft, what have you. They're the ones that decide to, push deadlines, cut projects short, cut out content, force stupid business models that make absolutely no sense and rob people of their money. That's all leadership. That's all the publishing house. That's all the C-suite. It's not the devs. The devs are the first ones yelling at them to not do it. I guarantee you. So back off the devs for once. Talk to them. Better yet, ask questions before you start yelling. Questions will get you far more information and give you far more ammo to fight the real bad guy than yelling and attacking people ever will. Especially with a studio like Arrowhead, who's constantly communicating with people. Did they have people in their community management team that stepped over the line and screwed up? Oh, yes. But at the same time, they also immediately came around and go like, no, this is not how we run things. This guy was wrong and we will handle them internally. We apologize. They apologize every single time and immediately, very quickly. They didn't wait for people to yell at them. That should tell you how they run things. And that should tell you that you can go to them directly and say, hey, man, why is this happening? Talk to me. When did you know? Oh, it was there the whole time? I didn't see it. But if you go and check, it was there from day one. So players are also to blame on this because they didn't read. A lot of people don't like to read nowadays. Well, fuck, if you don't read, how the hell are you supposed to know the rules? Before you do that knee-jerk reaction refund crap, read the fine print, see what the heck you missed. And when you find out that they didn't tell you something correctly, then use that. That's your ammo. Go after the ones that didn't communicate properly. But do so in a civil manner. Inform yourself first. Don't go out around based on misinformation from some angry troll that's yelling at everybody. The people out there yelling on social media don't work for these companies. They don't know what's going on, whatever it is that they tell you. Even I, as a dev, I know how things work behind the curtain. I will be the first one to tell you, I don't work for Sony. I don't work for Arrowhead. I don't know. I can only tell you what I surmise based on my professional experience. But at the end of the day, you'd have to ask someone from Arrowhead or Sony for actual details on what is going on and how it's actually working. Anybody outside of those circles that tells you they know what's going on is a fucking liar. So before I go on a full-on rant, as if I haven't done that already, I'm going to remind you guys of what I always say when I sign out. Remember to always be kind and just have fun. And I'll have an addendum to that. Always ask questions first. Leave the yelling for last. And if you gotta yell at the right person. Don't yell at the guy that's actually trying to work with you, trying to make things better for you. Please remember that going forward. If you want your games to get better, make friends with the devs. Don't make enemies with them.